All right, thank you for attending My Dog Playing with His Squeaky Toy number 107. I'm your host, Greg Gaub, and that's my co-host, Rocco the Dog. We're going to talk about slot cars. Great gang of people here already. Got John, and all the other Johns. We're going to start today a little bit differently because Henry and Wayne have had a fantastic experience with the 6-hour Suzuka Oxygen Digital Race, and they're going to tell us whatever they feel like telling us about that. Henry, I'm going to give you the floor first, so whatever you'd like to talk about and or share regarding the 6 hours of Suzuka would be fantastic.
On mute. And let's try to share something. So this is in the minus, and where it is. The GT.
It's not sharing yet.
Wait a moment, please.
Okay.
Well, what a blistering start to the show.
This is why I bring snacks.
I'm sorry, guys. But
No.
I don't see something happening over here.
Did you already open up the thing you want to share?
Yeah, but he has to open it with the picture program, but I only see spinning and spinning and spinning.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm in a similar boat because my pictures aren't on my PC; they're all on my phone, only on my phone still. So I can't share really easily either.
Well, you could join your phone like you did that one time.
Ah, that's true. I'll do that. Don't let me stop you though, Henry. Feel free.
I think he's working on it.
So in a nutshell then, we both traveled to Eindhoven in Holland to do a weekend of digital slot car racing. There were two separate events running. One was GT3 class. There were two 90-minute races for GT3 class on the Saturday. And then on the Sunday, there was a 6-hour World Endurance Championship race held to the same rules that the Le Mans 24 runs to. Any look yet, Henry?
I hear you. Do we have a share screen now or not?
Not yet.
Once you have it open, go back to Zoom, click share screen, then click your image program and then share.
Share screen.
There we go.
Get a shot at it.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. This is the Wayne said.
It's still coming in.
There
There we go. Okay, so we see your car.
Okay, this is what Wayne said. We are in at Friday at 2 o'clock. That was for the part of testing. And at Saturday we started with 2 GT races, and each race was 90 minutes. This is the car we had. This is made by Mark. And this is the. Can you see the back side of it now?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Chassis, yes. So it's really standard, but this is a picture of the track, the finish line, and this is one of our other teammates from Slipstream. So we went there with 2 teams, and you can drive this with 2-man or 3-man teams. Wayne, you can correct me if I'm wrong, huh?
No, that's entirely correct.
This is the other one of the team, the Hurricane. This is what the first 90 minutes. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 plays. So we had ID number 1, Slipstream.
And there's me in 6th.
Correct. US LLR GT mission.
That's right. Lowlands Racing GT.
All right. And Slipstream began 5th place. 1, 2, 3, 4th place. The other team. But yeah, that was Sebastian. Yeah, and he's one of the top drivers of the Netherlands.
Did you have any problems during that race, Henry?
I struggle a bit with a car. I didn't find it a nice car. No, not at all.
We had a mechanical. Our car lost all drive whilst it was out on the lap. There was a bit of a panic run around to get the car back into my hands, and I turned it upside down and rolled the back wheels, which were both still on the axle, but the spur gear wasn't turning. So I turned the spur gear, and it was still in mesh with the pinion, and then I discovered it had got no grub screws in it whatsoever anymore. So it was a quick run back to the paddock area where someone found a little M2 grub screw for me, and it threw that in and threw it back on the track in the pit lane, and we carried on.
That was
Great.
a good catch. You know, sometimes you can look right past the fact there's no grub screws in it.
Yeah.
And these are the results of the second run. So it's the same place again. 6th of 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th place. Yes.
And in our case on this race, we did exactly 8 laps more, which I contend is exactly probably the amount of laps I lost replacing that grub screw, which I didn't have to do in the second one.
And this is the lineup. Can you see the lineup?
Yep, looks good.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cars.
Yep. Good combination of colors too. That's always nice, not to have a field of the same color car.
No, you can see now something about the length of the track in this picture.
It's a beautiful track.
Yeah, it's well decorated for a club permanent layout. I will say that.
But did they put the Polycar lane changer in? That looked.
Yes, they did, but it wasn't in the main straight where you think it is.
And this is now I can disconnect this and try to do another one.
Yeah, we see your desktop, so pretty much anything you want to share. We did.
Share it has stopped. Okay. The Polycar, you can talk through it, Wayne. It wasn't, let's say, not a big success.
Not this time, no. It had no failures or issues at the Le Mans 24, and apparently at this race it did, and they completely went under my radar. But not yours, Henry. You had your camera out, walking around the paddock, and caught nearly everything like a roving undercover reporter.
What happened with the lane changer?
Mauricio was a little bit frustrated about it because it was a success. He told me in England 3 weeks earlier. He put it on a quick lane, and the cars were going upstairs. How do you call it? The throwing
Launch ramp, yes. So I understand.
Yeah,
I never
they were
saw it.
launched. So he had the computer with him, and I saw a lot of drawings of it, and he was a little bit frustrated because I think he had a setback of a half year now.
I mean, that's why you put him in a situation like this so that you can find out.
Well, remember Elon Musk threw what was it, a rocket at the windshield?
Window, yeah.
We've all been through things like that, so
Yeah.
you know, worse things can happen.
We're not sure about the implications. I didn't speak to him regarding the lane changes this time.
I hope you have the new one, the LMPs.
This is the Concorde Elegance lineup for the World Endurance Championship on the Sunday morning, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So this is the next day, the Sunday. And this is the lineup for the cars.
LMP1, LMP2, and GT.
Yeah, we drive them together. Do you think there is a lot of difference in it of performance?
No, yes, no. The intention is not to have very, very fast cars trying to do laps around very, very slow cars. So to keep these races from becoming a bit of a messy event, they pretty much run at similar pace. And you can actually build nearly any one of the three cars to be a front-running car. As you can see in that, what is that, the end of race results?
Yeah, after this is after 6 hours of racing.
Yeah, the red bands are the LMP1 cars, and they get to use the flat six motor with the opening in the can down towards the rail. The green bands are the GT cars, and they also have the choice, but they tend to run the MX-16 FC130S can motors in Sidewinder configuration. And the blue bands are the LMP2 cars, and they also have the choice of both motors, but they generally tend to use the flat six inline.
Yeah, the flat six, yes.
Although there are some with the FC130 MX-16 inline as well now, aren't there, that do quite well.
Is there a reason why the holes at the bottom are preferred?
Yes, you get a bigger magnetic flux leakage through the hole in the can.
Got it.
And you can get some magnetic downforce from the rails.
So this
the LMP2 can't run the motor with the hole in the can downwards. It has to run it in upside down.
At that moment of 6 hours of racing, we ended again at the sixth place, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, sixth place, and the other team of Slipstream on the fifth place. And LRGG a little bit. Yeah, we were a little bit quicker. Let me say that.
Yes, it's a typical situation where you don't go out there and generally win these races. What you go out and do is lose them. Nearly all the cars can do the lap time required. It's just a case of doing it for the whole race without having to stop it for any reason. And this was a race where we had to stop our car very early in the race because we lost our tail lights, didn't we?
Yep.
We had a soldering repair to do in the body shell.
And if you first have to drive into pit, and you get a warning from the organization that you have to fix your tail lights or other lights or something like that.
Or your rear wing, that's the most common one.
And then you lose about 5 minutes in a race. And that
I've calculated our losses and whatnots, and I reckon we lost a total of 64 laps over the whole race. But about 30 laps were lost due to fixing the light kit. We had another repair to do later.
I forget whose video it was. I think it was one of Henry's videos that apparently there was a lap counting issue sometime during one of the races. Was that during the 6 hours or during one of the other? Because I saw they had to stop the race. Basically, everybody was told to stop.
Correct. There was there is one of the guys who has enormous power on his regulator, on his controller, and he kills everyone. He kills every regulator in his hands. So they wanted to use 2 of them. So normally you have one controller and you turn around with the drivers.
Yeah.
And they thought you can make a clone of one of the other.
Yeah.
In that could be. But they make a mistake somewhere, So when the car was driving, it was counting laps. Or if we had not enough contact. So Mauricio has to come in and to fix the counting of the laps. And that took us about 20-25 minutes. And then
Didn't cost any race time, did it? We just ran 20-25. It didn't actually cost any race time. It doesn't show in the results anywhere because the clock actually stopped or paused.
Still raced for a whole 6 hours. You just stretched out. You just pushed the.
Yeah, we ran. The race took about 6 hours, 20 minutes to complete. Of course, with the Le Mans 24, that absolutely does not happen, and it always ends at 3 p.m. the next day.
Mm-hmm.
But afterwards, there was a discussion because when you make a failure, it's with the car or with the controller, it's your own fault. But in this case, they reset the time, and the party where we're talking about get his 27 laps back, something like that. So
I mean, you know, if it was the race, if the race organizers did the cloning operation, then that's reasonable. That the team wouldn't be held responsible for.
the team did it.
Yeah. So they're lucky that they didn't get caught. So was it just them not counting laps, or was it everybody not counting laps?
No, only them.
Only them. Well, they should be glad they got those laps then. If they did the cloning and then yeah,
they make the failure.
They made the failure. So yeah, they're lucky they got laps.
Buyer beware when you start doing stuff.
I mean, the cloning feature is a great idea, but this is a good example of how it can go wrong. And yeah, that team's lucky that they got laps rather than just lost laps.
Can you explain to us non-digital guys what the cloning feature is?
Sure. So basically with Oxygen and other direct wireless communication systems, Scorpius and presumably SCX Advance, the controller has a unique identifier. It's a MAC address, which is normal for Wi-Fi devices, and the car has the same information. And that's how the pairing works. Is they each know which unique identifier they should be listening to. And so when you have a team with multiple controllers, I'm not sure that's intentional, or no, maybe it is. So when you have a team with multiple controllers and the drivers don't want to use one control, you have a team with multiple drivers and the drivers don't want to use one controller because then they might have to, they might not like that trigger, or they might not want to tweak the knobs. They want to have their own controller set up. Then what the Oxygen system can do is, using the bootloader software, is basically take the information from one controller and copy it to a different controller, so that they are essentially effectively the same controller. They have the same unique identifier.
So they both controllers talk to the same car.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So obviously that can go wrong, but one of the thing that you should always do is never have them both on at the same time, right? If you have them both on at the same time, the car doesn't know which controller to pay attention to. So if you're doing a cloning thing, then the driver comes in for a driver change, he turns his controller off, and the new guy comes in and turns his controller on.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Was that Henry? Is that the guy from the team that had that problem, or?
No, this is Mark.
Oh, okay.
And I always attempt to make not only some pictures, I do some video, and I want to make some pictures, but also from the people, because they tell a story also.
And he built the car that you showed earlier, right?
Yeah, this is Wiki on the slot forum,
Okay.
Mark Wickers. It's the driver stand. Now, that's well known. A little suitcase and one box of repairs. And
Mark?
Mr. Mark. Sebastian, one of the best drivers of the Netherlands. And this is his father. He teaches him everything. This is the, how do you call it, Wayne?
Technical inspection.
Yeah.
Is that Underwood? Is that John Underwood?
Mr. Underwood.
That's John from the chat, yes.
A very well driver.
Gary.
Gary with the briefing.
Looks like he's doing a serious driver's briefing right there, but
Listen.
Yeah, it's not a big guy, but he is there. Last minute checkup.
that was a particularly nice slot car box, wasn't it? That one with the blue LEDs inside.
Oh, let's go back.
Go,
I didn't-
just one
yeah,
picture.
Yeah, here
That
at
one.
the end. Oh, it the box only was a show.
Wait, that's someone's slot car box?
Yes, it's and I
Did it,
didn't.
have, did it have like the mirrored ball and like disco as well? Or?
It plays music and has smoke effects.
It's really Saturday Night Fever. And this is one of the.
Dave, he joins the chat from time to
Yeah.
time. He lives locally to me now. I race against him at the club.
And after 6 hours, you're gonna be tired. Rockingham team. You can see that we're playing with cars, but it's serious business, huh?
Yeah, I mean, if the cars were any bigger, you wouldn't know the difference.
Briefing. So that's that one.
Oh, so all the key characters getting the pictures except for me then, Henry?
That's for sure, but you're
You're not
Because you're not
worthy.
a key character.
You were
obviously.
hiding.
you're
your own
6
words.
times. You are 6 times in the video.
Oh, I am the video. Yes,
That's true.
I am in the video.
Actually, Wayne, Wayne, you were in those pictures. It just took so long to Photoshop you out.
Yeah. I was bumming them all.
What was the lane length? Yeah, what was the size of the track and the footprint of the facility that housed it?
Well, if you want to get a good idea, I don't know any numbers for the length of the lap or anything. Do you,
No.
Henry? No.
No,
If you want to get a good look
Let's
around
say-
the venue, then you ought to pop over to my YouTube channel because I popped a 7-minute long walk around video of the place. So the channel's called Car Fun mostly, and whilst you're over there, please like and subscribe.
Put it in the chat.
I put it in the chat. And by the way, Wayne, kudos to you for not stealing those tires you were going through. I know you were tempted. You were tempted.
Hey, Wayne, put that site in the chat.
if you look at the track, it's a 6-lane track. I think it's much too much for a digital race. Normally they drive them, of course, only analog, but all drivers want to drive in lane 3 and lane 4. And when you are out of the, you come off the track, you get put it on in 1 or 6 lane. So you first have to change every time to looking of an LZ, and then come back to the 3 and 4, and that costs a lot of time.
Yes, it did add an extra dimension that I personally have never experienced. Usually, if you crash in any 4-lane track, you've only got 1 lane to move to get to one of the middle 2. Well, in this case, you had to get from 1 or 6 because you were marshaled to the outside of whatever corner you crashed in, or the nearest side to the marshal, shall we say. And because it's a figure 8, oh, there I am, look.
There you are. Oh, he missed one. He missed one.
This is the Saturday because I'm working on there's the 4GT and I'm working on the GT3 car. So yeah, because it's a figure 8 layout, you would suddenly find that you were marshaled to lane 6 if you crashed in that end of the track, and if you crashed in the other end of the track, you'd be marshaled to lane 1. And it did add quite a lot of complexity and penalty to any crash to get into the favored lanes again.
Did the I assume all the oxygen lane changers were set to inside versus outside, so you could choose to go inside only on your controller, right?
That's exactly correct. Yes, you had to know which button to hold to get to the next, to the next, to the next. But of course, if
But
you've
it's
got,
not. But
if
it's
you're
not
in the
right or
vicinity,
it's not. That's what I'm saying. It's not left or right. It's inside versus outside. So regardless of where you get marshaled back in, if you hit the go inside, you're going to go inside.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
The trouble with it, though, Greg, is the amount of traffic that you're around. You've got to change lanes responsibly, otherwise you're just going to have another crash.
Yeah.
You're going to put two cars in that gutter lane with you, and that is one of the big secrets of endurance digital races. If you have an incident that causes you to deslot, for goodness sake, don't have three more trying to get back to where you think you should be running.
And they have single lane changes and double lane changes.
Yeah, and they had some curved lane changes in that track, which was also a first for me.
Yeah.
And if you're driving south, you have to push the button on the left side. But if you're driving north, you have to push the button on the right side. So all the, for as I know, they push the two buttons directly at the same time.
Okay.
On every lane change.
If you do that though, Henry, you're going to keep switching back to the gutter lane.
They knew they were watching their car and trying not to do that. But I've never raced on an oxygen track with oxygen electronics that had the whole inside versus outside thing.
It does add another level of complexity. And let me tell you, when the lights go out and you're driving in the dark and you've forgotten where all the lane changes actually are, that adds a whole nother dimension.
Yeah.
The last I have it in the movie, but the last hour you're gonna drive in totally dark. And I think from the stand till the end, 15-20 meters.
You see, you speak about that, Henry, like it's a really long way and it's a really big track, and you really ought to come to the Le Mans 24, because it's probably only half the distance at Suzuka to where your car is that you will experience at both ends of the track in Le Mans.
But Le Mans is there's no bridge, and it's on the floor, and the rostrum is even higher than at Suzuka. So there's a much bigger difference between your eyes and the track versus Suzuka.
Now, there is some lighting at Le Mans. Is there some at Suzuka?
Well, that fire escape that you can see right there, that was never extinguished. Apart from that, I think everything else was out.
In the beginning, there was in the middle was no some lights, but after 20 minutes,
they went for about 10 minutes of dusk conditions where there was only a couple of lights above the race control, and then when they went out, that's when it went properly dark. And to be honest, I did a stint in the dark, and that was where I felt most competitive. In the stint that I did a 90-minute stint in approximately 2 hours to 3 hours 30 in the race. I didn't feel all that competitive, and I felt as though there were at least as many cars catching me and passing me as there were that I could catch and pass. So being right in the middle of the field, I had to have eyes in all directions. But in the dark, I felt like I was catching and passing a lot more cars than I had in the other stint that I'd done. And I've done the analysis on the photographs I take of the race control screens, and I've established that the lap numbers that I did in the dark were absolutely equivalent to the lap numbers I did in the dark, in the light, but that wasn't the case for all the other teams. So my relative competitiveness did take a step up. And that probably is just due to experience.
I was just going to say, how many other drivers there have done Le Mans?
Well, quite a number. We often get teams from Holland making the return journey. And I've only done 3 of the 9 Le Mans that have been run up to now. So there's more experience around than I'm necessarily aware of. And of course, there are a lot of faces there that I've seen before. But it was my first visit to the track. The track is absolutely chock-a-stock full of corners of varying radii. There is 4 straights, but none of them are all that long. And it took quite a while to get comfortable with the track in terms of getting the speeds right for most of the corners. I spent most of Friday traveling there. And then once I got there, I think I got there about 5:30, landed at 4, got collected from the airport at 5 and got to the track at 5:30. Did the track close at 10, Henry? I think I spent 50% of that time driving, just driving and driving and driving and crashing and crashing and crashing because of pushing and pushing, trying to find the limits. And it felt like a real home gamer's advantage. Home track knowledge was going to be really, really relevant.
Wayne, do you guys use magnets or not magnets?
No traction magnets, only the motor.
Henry, you were sharing your Windows folder rather than the picture. And
Wayne, when you get put back on the track as you've come out and you get into those outside lanes, is the track dirty out there? Do you pick up a lot of crud on the tires?
Absolutely has to be, because most of the cars are running in the middle. I'm going to say the middle 4. I actually went out there in the beginning and put myself in lane 5 and then learned what I could of the track there, and then moved to lane 2 and tried to stay in lane 2 for as long as I could. And if I crashed and I got put in 1, then it was an easy trip to 2 to try and learn 2. And then if I crashed at the other end of the track and I got put in 6, then I would switch my focus back to 5. And I find that if I can learn what are going to be gutter lanes and get those down, then the middle 2 are going to be relatively easy by comparison.
No, I just wondered whether the apart from the problem of having to change lanes back into the faster center lanes, whether apart from that you had to clean up the tires again because they picked up crud from those lanes not being used very much.
Interestingly, my take on the way that the Ninko track and the rubber tires interact is that the grip doesn't come from adhesion, which is clean surfaces and large contact areas. It comes more from abrasion, because the track is really pointy, spiky, and digs pieces of the tire away. The tires go slightly furry by comparison to anything that you would pull off of a tire tread.
So it doesn't really make much difference.
It doesn't make a huge difference. The track still rubbers in and gets quicker during the weekend. There's no doubt about that. You can see it in the lap times. You can see it in your own performances.
Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we're looking at your Windows folder. You need to share you need to share the desktop so that we see everything that you see, or you need to share your picture viewer. Right now we just see the folder full of thumbnails.
Sorry.
I'm going to stop your share. So if you have the picture open in your picture viewer, come back to Zoom, click share, then click the picture viewer to share that. Or click desktop, and we'll just be able to see everything. There we go. Mr. Underwood behind a turn.
Yeah, okay.
Marshalling what's called the spoon curve.
I was going to say it's down at the end, right?
Yeah.
I want to try to make pictures from you can of course make a picture of a car, but
you see this turn just here, this little right-hander just as you exit from under the overpass. This was my main Achilles heel, running in lane 5, which that car's currently in. I would shoot underneath the bridge, expecting to come out in a nice straight line, and there was that corner there, that somebody had put there just to annoy me, and it kept tucking me off. That was my first major issue when I ran lane 5. When I ran lane 2, it was a lot easier, but running lane 5, that one would kick my car out the slot time and time again during the learning process.
A little bit
50 centimeters after the bridge, there is a corner.
A hairpin, right?
Yeah,
No.
that's killing me. That's killing you.
Yeah, no, this corner, this little right-hander that you're looking at is the 50 centimeters from the bridge.
Yeah.
The next corner that the car's approaching is actually a long hairpin left.
Yep.
The difficulty of making pictures is you can shoot a picture of a car, and that but you want some movement in it. So it gives a lot of practice to do this.
I think that looks great. I mean, I expect blurry cars. You're either going to get a blurry car or a blurry background. Take your pick.
So
Yeah.
Henri, if you go back to the last picture, those were the one-way lane changers on the outside you were talking about?
Yeah,
here
those
too.
they're visible here too, yes. Those are to get you from the gutter lanes back towards the centre lanes. There's lots of those around the track, lots of opportunities to do that.
Yeah,
But you saw the frequency of the X lane changes, XLCs, they're all over the place. And even look, there's some single direction ones there.
I was going to say there's lots of lane changers here.
Yeah, you
And they're
can
in
imagine.
very peculiar places.
And if you push the two buttons directly, it's gonna hold for 10 seconds that position. So it takes again the another lane change.
I didn't know it was a sticky. That both buttons at the same time is a sticky for 10 seconds.
No,
That's a real cool feature.
I mean, it can be, but not here. Not when there's lane changer after lane changer like that.
Well, true enough, true enough. You do have to time it.
are we talking about physically sticking down buttons, or are we actually on about
Oh,
the feature?
there's a feature from the early digital stuff for the SCP where one lane change button was press and hold to change lanes, and the other one was press and it holds 10 seconds for you. You don't have to hold the button physically yourself.
I wouldn't want that.
But it sounds like that's what Henry was saying. If you press both buttons, then it does it for you for 10 seconds.
Yeah, something like that.
Did you ever use both buttons, Wayne?
Yes,
And you don't think that was
but
happening?
I didn't experience doing a whole lap changing lanes because it's a 13-second lap. You'd be changing nearly everywhere, but I didn't experience that. The only time I used both buttons this weekend is if I was in a gutter. It was just safe. I knew I would take the next change in whichever direction that was, because I didn't have to think about using the left button or the right button. I just used them both, and then I would be in at least the next lane. And of course, you choose your favorites as you develop your knowledge of the track. And I was saving the opportunity to turn back towards the busy lanes for certain places, like at the end of the main straight. Every lane at the end of the main straight, the one with the grandstands on, had got the opportunity to go in one lane, and they were all the same. And so you could do the rest of the lap and get mounted there, and then know that there was a changer there that was going to take you to where you wanted to be. And it got the right speed of approach, even at racing speed.
Yeah, it's called latched lane change is what the controller called it. And it wasn't 10 seconds. I think it was only 2 seconds for back in the early days. I'd be surprised if they had a latched lane change for oxygen for 10 seconds. 2 seconds, I could believe it, but I haven't seen that in the documentation anywhere. So maybe that's a bug.
No, I think you're right, Greg, because let me say it's almost if you make a mistake in it, it takes another one behind it.
Yeah.
So that could explain the odd occasion where you change lane and you didn't intend to. You've actually been holding the buttons and you've set the latch, and 2 seconds later you're off of them and you're through a changer that you didn't expect to be.
These are some pictures because last time of one of the Zoom meetings, one of the guys said, I want to see the cars in the aftermatch.
Oh yeah.
So I had it in mind, and I took pictures of all the cars after 6 hours of racing. Now this one is the second time that we used them because we have this from tomorrow, so we have already did the 6 hours with it. So this is the second time on the track. Yeah, and it's got some damages. and some repairing to do. But most of them are only dented, scratched, and
That's my one, look.
yeah,
All in good nick.
sure it
That
is.
body's done 2 24-hour races and a couple of 6-hour and 8-hour enduros. It has needed some repairs, usually sills glued back on and wings stuck back on, but it's done quite a lot.
Wonderful car. This is one of the greatest supermarkets here in Holland, and Mr. Jumbo, yeah, does a lot of sponsoring. Yeah, that's why how your brake looks after 6 hours.
It's actually not bad.
No,
They're actually surviving a lot better these days than they used to do only 5 years ago. I'll be honest.
That was quite an interesting motor pod on that car. What was it?
go back.
SV Works.
The NSR.
With all those little holes in it?
No, that one was SV Works.
Ah.
There's a website called,
Oh, yeah,
website called svworks.com. It's a friend of ours called Stephen Verelst, who's a designer. I don't know how he made it. Is it produced at Shapeways, Henry?
Yeah, no, I don't think he sells the Shapeways. He sells his own.
He said, oh yeah, okay. He sells it directly from his site.
Yeah,
Got quite
yeah,
a nice little wheel-to-wheel roller tool as well, hasn't he? I noticed that on the bench at the weekend.
I'm sorry, what brand of track is that? Henry?
It's Ninko.
Nico.
It looks like
Yeah,
that chassis
if
too.
you come on these
Yes,
sorts of occasions,
If you look just behind the guide, you can just make out his logo, SV.
Okay,
Yeah.
so chassis and pod, yeah.
it's SV Works. On the of these sorts of events, you're gonna meet mostly the best drivers you can find, and also the manufacturers.
The cottage industry manufacturers, and then Maurizio.
I wonder what his weights are on that chassis and pod and stuff. Because that's the whole reason for the honeycomb design of the pod, is to reduce weight, I assume.
I'm sure, and taking off the heat.
Yeah, cooling.
Yeah, cooling. This car actually won the Ford GT that with the yellow panels on that you just saw there was the Concours d'Elegance winner, wasn't it, Henry?
Yeah, it's a Belgian
It was
guy.
it was a car that we were closely racing with for a large part of the race. We dropped straight to the back of the field in the first 40 minutes, and then we made our way forward from there on for the rest of the race. And we were catching this car for quite a while, having a good race with it, and then we took a lead away from it in the end.
I mean, just looking at the fire extinguisher on the interior, I can imagine that his interior was quite detailed.
Oh, that guy in the background there, Henry, that's Mr. Pro Speed, Stefan Nalbach, my teammate, responsible for the Pro Speed chassis, which you do get drive via Shapeways. My story of the event, and I'm not going to show you lots and lots of photographs, but it's more of a personal one, because we were advised to get to the airport 3 hours earlier than you would expect because of delays through security that had been occurring in Manchester. And so I was at the airport for a 1:45 in the afternoon flight at 9:15. And we'd been in contact with one another, and David'd seen the same warnings. So he changed his train ticket to arrive about the same time. So we spent most of the morning outside the airport, checked in his bag. I was hand luggage only. We went inside, and there were absolutely no delays whatsoever in security. So we spent most of the morning chatting and catching up and one thing and another. We flew over to Holland. Tamar met us at the airport. And as I turned on my mobile phone, established a data connection, roaming, etc., I received an email. And it was from booking.com. And it was about my hotel for Sunday night, because I flew back Monday afternoon. And the hotel I'd booked was the one at the airport. And I booked it and paid for it in the matter of about 2 days before I flew. And when I landed in Eindhoven, I discovered that they had cancelled my booking and refunded my payment. And as it stood, Friday afternoon, I have no hotel room for Sunday night. So I went to the track, ignored the problem for the day. And then during Saturday, I remembered last week's slot car chat where Henri had said, I'm going to jump in my RV and go to Eindhoven to race. So around lunchtime, I pulled the gentleman quietly to one side and I asked him for a big favour. I said, you're in your RV, is it a big RV? And he said, of course it is. He says, have you brought your wife? Are you alone? He says, no, there's just me. So what happened Sunday night after the race meeting was that Henri and I went for tea at the local fish and chip shop, made our way back to his RV and spent a pleasant evening in the sun till about 9 o'clock, taking apart his rolling road and having a look inside, showing me some of his club race cars, etc. Swigging a beer. And as the night grew on, that beer became vodka and Coke. I was on paracetamol for a toothache that I'd taken abroad with me. And I was slowly getting smashed.
Don't tell us about the six. Don't tell us about the six.
This is like the slot car equivalent
All right,
of Cheech and Chong.
This is family friendly.
Well, no, you see, I finally got to sleep in that cab that the kids love above the driver's seats.
Yeah.
So I spent the night. We spent the night together, and we went back to he took me to the airport on Sunday morning, and I wished to publicly thank Henri very much for saving my bacon at the weekend. We had a great time.
Hey, Henri.
Go,
Just so you
Henri.
know, I got your hat.
Hey,
You left it.
Henri, how much liquor did it take for him not to talk? That's what we want to know.
I can tell you an honest secret. He even talks in his sleep.
No.
But does it last 52 minutes? It's good.
I said to Greg up front, we're going to talk about a 6-hour race, but he's going to take 8 hours.
Hold on, I gotta go recharge my battery in my controller. Speaking of controllers, so I ran out and grabbed my SCP, one of my SCP-3s, and it doesn't seem to do the latch lane change. Did anybody there have an SCP-3, or was it all SCP-1s and 2s? With
No, we used it for right.
Well, I mean, it did the LED with the digital cartridge, the way that I remember it. When you push the button, the light lights up, little LED lights up. Right?
Yep.
And it stays on as long as you hold it. With the latched lane change, the light stays on after you let go of the button. So that's what I was trying to get the light to stay on after I let go. Now I could still be doing it and just not leaving the light on. I'll have to do some more testing, but I don't know, maybe it was.
Perhaps it needs to communicate with the other chip in the
It
car.
might need the car going. It might need the dongle for the race management going. It might be the version of firmware that I have on here. I don't know. You were using SCP-3, Wayne?
Yes.
Do you remember what firmware it was? The latest?
No. Unfortunately.
What I heard of the day of the racing is that for one chip, for the seat, now I don't know which chip it was.
It was the B2 chip, the new version of the firmware that's defunct.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
There
that's
was
the
a
only
release
thing
day,
that's changed.
day before the race, wasn't there?
But
Yeah,
otherwise,
and it just-
other than the Type B2 chip firmware, everything else was latest firmware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do some more testing.
He insists not to change the firmware of the controller because it was correct.
Yeah. And the label doesn't say anything about latched lane change anymore, but that was basically only applicable to the digital cartridge for wired digital systems. So I'll do some more testing, but interesting thing.
Do you have the amplifier in it?
I don't. Did you have an amplifier in your Wayne? The PAM?
What does that look like?
It's just a little chip that plugs inside the controller.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that a range extending amplifier then?
Yeah, that's what it's for. I don't have that, so that might be it as well.
No, they have changed. They have raced with amplifiers. So, and I didn't see. But your problem is it doesn't lane change at all.
No, mine.
No,
it's not
get the latched lane change.
Yeah, it's not doing the sticky lane change that you're talking about.
Okay.
I did experience the sticking down of the button. There was a button I had to sometimes flick it or roll my thumb across it to make it return. And it's
All the
no
SCPs
issue. And it was
all
in
the
the
SCPs have-
SCPs. And
if you have
it's
a
still there in-
SCP-1, if you have a 1, a 1.2, a 2, or a 3, they have all the same problem. The bottom stick. We take them out and with a Dremel, and we make them more accessible.
Yeah, you just enlarge the hole slightly, don't you? And then it's sticking.
They all have the same problem.
I don't think mine had that modification done.
Yeah,
But after all, we had a wonderful weekend, and yeah, it's a great experience. And you see I think one of the best drivers you can match, and it doesn't matter if you're going to be first or last. It's great to be there.
And isn't there's going to be another Oxygen event here in another month or two, right? I forget where it is, but I know there've been.
Rockingham have got one at the end of July.
That's probably the one I'm thinking of.
And there is another one in October at North Staffs.
Yeah, so the small events are a great way for people to get a taster to see if they want to do the big one.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So I'm going to try to remember to put links to your guys' YouTubes in the video description so that people can go check those out. Did you guys have anything else on that topic that you wanted to add? Dennis, did you have a question for them, or are you ready for show and tell?
No, I got my hand up early for show and tell.
Okay, so
that question though, was it all following the DISCO stipulations, the DISCO rules for that race?
Yes.
Even for the GT races, the 90-minute races, or just the WEC?
No, the GT races were according to the GT rule book too, and there was a small discrepancy that was discovered there. There was in that format of racing, there is a driver change window, and it opens 5 minutes before and closes 5 minutes after. So it's a 10-minute window, and they occur every 30 minutes. And of course, the discrepancy comes in when you've got a two-man team and you've only really got one driver change to do. You're not going to insist on one driver doing 2 half-hour stints and the other one only doing one. So we had to create a mechanism that would function for the teams that are going to be penalised. Oh, so every driver change is also a mandatory 1 minute, so that you don't have to run to the podium and run to the marshal point. So it's a steady exchange. Now, usually this timing is done with little egg timers that race control hold. And when you tell them, when they notice your car come into the pits, they'll turn one of the egg timers over and then they'll release you. But this time we hadn't got the egg timers, so we all just did it on trust basis. But still, the 3 driver teams were going to do 2 stops where the other drivers were only going to do 1. So we had to create a mechanism whereby that every team had to do 1 stop of 1 minute, and the others, because they got 3 people, the other teams could do the second stop in the Le Mans style, which is as quick as you like, as quick as you can.
Now, were those digital egg timers?
No, they weren't. They were calibrated sand, John.
Interesting. Well, looking forward to more events like that in the future. Let us go ahead and move on. Thank you to Henri and Wayne for staying up until all hours to give us this report in a timely manner.
And for surviving, sort of cohabitation. That's awesome.
That too. Good job, Henri. All right, we'll let them go, or let Henry go at least. And Dennis is ready to start off show and tell. Now is the time to put your hand up for show and tell so we can make sure to get to you. What do you got to show, Dennis? I'm gonna spotlight you here.
This is the latest from Sideways.
Ah, the Conti.
No,
No?
it is
No, the
a
AMR.
Aston Martin Vantage.
That nose is so short, it looks like a Conti.
And it was a white kit that I got, and so it's been done up in my regular colors. Underneath looks the same as pretty much every other Sideways car. Size-wise, it's about the same as the McLaren. Performance-wise, it's just as good as the McLaren, maybe a little better, but that's probably more from one motor to the next, and maybe fresher tires on this one than on the previous one that I did. But I just thought I'd let you know that these are out, and they're really nice. They go together well as a kit if you like to build them and paint them, and that's the story.
How do they go compared to the M6, Dennis?
They're better than the M6s because the M6 is big. It's long. It's
Okay.
long and narrow, and certainly on my track, these cars are better. My track doesn't like very long cars.
Okay.
Dennis, with that chassis, do you glue that section in the like gap around that, or do you leave it flexible?
I haven't. I've left mine alone.
Okay.
I'm still going to try at some stage to use these little holes that they have there, and the little screws that the little caps that they give you to put something in there and tighten it up. But I've never seen the need for it. I've left them alone. And on some of my Sideways cars, they have tape across the pod. This one I haven't done that yet. I really, I haven't done a lot of racing with it or a lot of driving with it yet, even.
Great looking.
So again, sorry.
I didn't see your little logo you put on there, your little starburst.
No, the starburst I put on the cars that the 124th race cars. Tend not to put them on the 132nd cars. I know the one you mean. I'll put one on for you, Brian. And,
Has it got bendy wing stays then? Has it got bendy wing stays, or are they stiff plastic?
No, they're still stiff plastic.
You think it's going to survive a good rollover, or?
Yeah, I think they'll just pop out. They just press in. They're not stuck in, so they'll pop out. But the chassis are good that if you drop it, it'll break.
Great looking car. Thanks for sharing.
And then while I'm talking, I just had one thing for Jeremy.
Go ahead.
Jeremy's up. He's here. I thought I heard his voice.
I'm still here. Sorry, I was working on a car.
Okay. Now I'm trying to remember what the hell it was. Oh, drop me your email, please, in the chat.
Okay.
Or privately. And I had a couple of ideas about your 4x4 weighbridge.
Okay.
That I think might help you.
I will do that.
All right.
All righty, moving on. Mr. Bill, you've got your hand up. What's up?
Yeah, just following up with Dennis here, I want to highlight the. I also have a sideways racer that I purchased through Electric Dreams just recently, and just a quick share on this. And this is, I guess it's a Hurricane or Huracan. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah. Lamborghini Huracan. Yeah.
Yeah. So the sentimentality on this or whatnot, as you can see here, is this is my old company.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
And let's see. Wow. I mean, I paid for this camera and it stinks close up. Wow. Well,
Yeah,
anyway, essentially, yeah, basically it's you know, from my old company, and so I got to share it with my old coworkers and everything, and it was really just a neat, you know, kind of a neat little personal bit. When I came across it over at Electric Dreams, I never would have expected it to see it, and I was just like, oh, cool. And so big thank you to Dennis and Electric Dreams on that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you.
What happened to the wheel inserts at the front?
Pardon me?
What happened to the wheel insert at the front?
Oh, good question. I don't know. I'm going to have to look around the garage. I'll get back to you. I believe we had a discussion a couple of weeks ago about my my layout, and I was going to need some shoulders. I don't recall launching this, but I don't know. I'll find out.
All right.
I'm sure it's my fault somewhere.
My experience has been they've been a very shallow fit, and they come out frequently.
Okay.
A bit of shugu or something will hold them in easily.
Yeah.
Don't always blame yourself for an insert that comes out. Sometimes they just come out.
Yeah. Well, it's fun to drive. I mean, I really enjoy it. It sticks to the track well when I'm not, you know, I mean, there are basically two places on my track where it's my fault. If it goes off, you know, if it crashes there, there's no way around it. It's my fault. Everywhere else, you know, this thing just flies, and really enjoy it. So good.
They're great cars.
I mean, it's still your fault, but
well, yeah. Yeah. Now I got something to do tonight. I guess I got to go through the garage, find that one.
It could be on the table somewhere, under your track somewhere, under the track, between the track and the table somewhere.
Probably. I'll find it right about the time we move.
Exactly. All right, good stuff, Bill. And I know John Crawley has something to share. Are you ready to share that? Does anybody else have any show and tell? John wanted to be a segue between show and tell and Club Corner. Does anybody else have any show and tell? All right, John, take it away. Oh, wait, Brian? Go ahead, Brian.
John was asking a little while ago, you know, after hours last week, we talked with Garth a bit, and he was talking about his wheels. So I did go ahead and I designed some new ones for these that I did. And John Kitt, you'd ask about if I'd show. What I was talking about with Greg was more of a technique on how to support these when printed. So not so much the wheels, but see if I can hold that still enough where you can actually see them.
No, it looks good. Looks very good.
They do.
They're strictly a pressure fit, but I'm using a little different technique, and they fit as tight as the slotted wheels do for me. I did those, and I did them in a 10 wide, and I did a 5-hole. But the other thing I wanted to show you, and you guys may actually be sick of seeing this. You guys have seen this car before. Okay, now there is some significance to this car for me. Is one, I designed it, I printed it, I built it, but the main thing is I finished it. Now, I don't know about you guys as hobbyists, but I have a tendency to start a lot of things and not finish things. But this happens to be one car that I actually did. Now, the problem is when someone who probably has ADHD, you see it's got the little 17K motor in it, finishes a project and gets a little fancy, you end up with another one. This is an unpainted body, the same design. You see it's not finished yet, but you might notice a little difference on the bottom.
Yep.
Yep, different motor.
Nice.
More power.
Yeah. This car weighs 50 grams.
That's pretty light. But that's not interchangeable, is it? That motor is much wider than the Slim.
Yeah, I had to redesign the chassis.
What about the body?
More the motor mount than the chassis itself. But that's a 25K Predator.
But the body is unchanged, so you could swap chassis between bodies with no problem.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I had I had to open a little bit of clearance back here, but it's a matter of just a little sanding. It's not really that much of a difference. It's more right ahead of the wheel there where I need a little more room. I don't know if you can see that, where it's a little wider near the nugget there. Yeah, so like I said, this was special to me because it's something I actually did from start to finish and actually finished it in a relatively timely manner. And then you get old, you get crazy, you live in a state that has legalized marijuana, and you end up with something that looks like this. I will
That
keep
looks
you posted.
great.
Finished and painted. It's a beast. My original thought for this is I have one of the old Carrera McLarens, the blue one with the super ass wide rear tires. I think that's what might end up on this. So and I did some skinny wheels for the front of that as well. They're the O-ring style.
You could use those on your thingy as well, right?
Right, yeah.
So that's like O-ring wheels?
Yep.
There
And
you
then
go.
that was just a simple 5-spoke I did. But you can see I'm getting a nice clean back edge. The hub is actually more of a spacer, and I glue it on after the fact. It doesn't really grip the axle. It's more just for spacing than anything. And I did that simply because I didn't want it to affect the trueness of the wheel, if you will. But they run good and true. The little trick I asked Greg about, and he passed along, gave me nice clean shoulders on the backside. And that's one of the banes of 3D printing is overhangs, getting them clean and flush. And in the little trick he shared with me took care of that issue. So thank you for that.
Glad it worked. Thanks for sharing, Brian. Did anybody have any questions for Brian before we move on?
Hey, Brian, did you share your link to your work? You talked about you had some files up somewhere.
I have not yet. And that was the question that I was asking Greg about getting to the comment sections and where I didn't know how to get to the comment section. Somebody asked about the files I did for the opinion press too, and I didn't know how to respond. So I will get that.
Should be a chat on the right side drop down, unless you're using a phone or something.
I think he wanted to go back to the YouTube comments and specifically comment somebody's comment. But
Well,
Brian, if you have a Thingiverse page, go ahead and put the URL into the Zoom chat, and I'll make sure it's in the description. These days, I'm switching over to printables.com because Thingiverse is not respectable anymore for variety.
It would be on Thingiverse. It would be on TinkerCad.
Okay. A link to your TinkerCad model, public TinkerCad.
Yeah, I haven't made it public yet, but I will. It's been a busy week. We're working all kinds of overtime this week. So.
However and whenever you want to share your work is always appreciated.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Brian. And Mr. Weber, you've got your hand up. What would you like to show and tell today?
Yes, maybe two things, maybe just one. I'm not sure, but it depends on how things go. This is a sort of a kit bash, I guess you could call it. One of the inexpensive eBay resin bodies of a second generation Corvair, building a Yenko Stinger. And back in the day, Corvairs and Camaros of the same era had the same wheelbase, but it turns out that this body shell does not have a standard wheelbase. So I found a Pioneer. I've got a Pioneer chassis, bare chassis, and it came with a motor, but no body. And took one of those and stretched it 5 millimeters by sectioning, I guess you'd call it sectioning the frame right in this area here in a sort of an L shape. Instead of just cutting it square 90 degrees across and then trying to fit that back up after you insert a filler piece, a gap filler to help. And I used some carbon fiber RC airplane model leftover stuff I had. some carbon fiber strips for rails inside the rails of the chassis itself after it was cut apart. Super glued those in and then used JB Weld epoxy to really add the bulk and strength. And turned out pretty well so far. This is show and tell and ask. I've had a question for the model building experts there. How do you go about developing the glazing to go in a body like this? I guess John Kit is probably the best that I know of about.
Yeah, well, I mean, the easiest way is to, if you can, either use some sort of plastic, like I would suggest, the styrene sheets that you can get at hobby stores, and try and mold it to the shape of the glass, and then make a mold of that actual piece of plastic, and then cast it in clear, and you've got glass.
Okay.
The other solution too is to use soda bottles. I've used that before too. You sort of rinse it out, and because they have different sort of contours to them, and
right.
Sometimes you can get lucky and sort of finagle one to fit the car that you're working on.
Right. Okay.
That's a cool little tip there, John.
Excuse me.
Sorry, I was just that's a cool tip, John.
Oh, thank you. And the other thing too is you can do sort of what Henri and Wayne did and add some rye or vodka to it.
Okay. I found a small Listerine bottle. It's made of this. Listerine is pretty tough. I mean, pretty strong chemically, and so it's pretty good stuff, and it has some nice shapes to it. And I developed a windshield. Just cut it and keep working on it with files and sandpaper and whatever on the edges to get it to fit in that space. But yeah, and the other, let's see, was a I haven't shared images live like this before, but the other is a little model that I bought on eBay, fairly rare, from a company called Bergman. It was made by Bergman in the middle 60s. And let's see if I can find that. I need to go back to this. I'm sorry. Where do I start to share an image?
Well, find your image on your desktop.
Okay.
Open it, and then once it's open, you go to share screen, and then select that image, and it'll share.
Yeah. Open the image, and then come back to Zoom, and click share screen at the bottom of the Zoom window. Pick your image program in the window that pops up with a bunch of other windows, and then there's another share button at the bottom of that.
In the interim, John, I know you like Corvairs. Is anyone else interested in Corvairs? Because I think I had the original Aurora kit, and I've been tempted to sort of cast it, but I didn't know if people were. And first of all, I think it's a fairly accurate kit.
Right.
If you'll put in a Ralph Nader model or driver, I'll totally buy it.
A skinny guy in a suit in a gray suit with a white shirt and black tie.
Trying to tip it over.
Yeah, and put him on the front, John, on the hood of the Corvair, so that he's being driven face first at speed.
That does seem appropriate.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm still working on it here. Hold on.
I also thought of making a Fiero into a lighter.
Hello. I know this problem might be with this computer. It doesn't want to.
All right, I'll hack into your computer real quick. Well, go ahead and keep trying, John, and we'll have Mr. Crawley go ahead and do his show and tell. And then, if you pop up with yours, then we'll do a little quick, short diversion. But Mr. Crawley, go ahead and start your show and tell.
So this started back 2020, late 2020, Christmas time-ish. A bunch of us went out and bought the Polycar F1 cars that you're all familiar with. And we all worked on the front tires to try to get them to touch the ground. And then shortly thereafter, the NSRs came out. The Guy family loved them. And then right after the scale Altos. And so we had kind of the non-magnet cars and the magnet cars. And we were running. And one of our guys got a Carrera 4-lane digital layout that looks exactly like Indy. It's got the long straightaways, it's got the short shoots, it's got the curves and everything. And so we said, well, we'll use it for mini-indy this year. And then everybody said, oh, I want to use my Polycar, I want to use my, whatever else I had, the NSRs or the scale Altos, because those all weren't kind of compatible. And about that time, a distributor came to us with an offer on digital Carrera F1 cars. We were able to get 16 of them. And yeah. And so we bought them. And then the quandary was, now what do we use in this? So we came up with this idea that starting, in fact, it started last week, we qualify with the two sets, with the set of Polycars in a set, and then you qualify with either the NSR or the scale Alto in a set. So you're qualifying non-magnet and you're qualifying magnet. And then you take, those are done in heat races. And then when the heat race and your times, and then we pick the top, the 6 teams for the top 6 drivers out of each of those. Then this weekend, what we will do is we'll take Brenda Hale, Alan's wife, we'll take a basket. There's 10 tiles. We have a guy that works in the tile business. And on 5 of them, there's an M, and on 5 of them, they're blank. She'll strum around and reach in and pick it out. And if you get a blank, that means we're not using magnets. And if you get an M, we are using magnets. And so then when we go downstairs to the racetrack, we have our digital cars waiting, and we can either take the magnets out of them, or we have to put the magnets in depending on which tile had been chosen. And then we race our 500 lap race with the digital cars. And it's a pretty cool thing. And in the races, and you have to put the cars, by the way, through the magnet marshal after you take the magnets out to make sure they still weigh what they're supposed to, and that the motor doesn't have still too much of a downforce. You're only allowed 3.3 times the weight of the car for the magnetration. So it's just one of our rules. And a motor itself will add 1 to 2 grams to a pull down, if it's a good motor. But anyway, we get the cars ready. They're inspected. I got to qualify my non-magnetic car at second. I'd never raced or driven non-magnetic before and got a second. I've been practicing, but I thought that was pretty damn cool. So if we go if she pulls out a blank, I'll be sitting in the second slot of the first row. If she pulls out a magnet, I'm going to be in the back of the second row, the last of the second row. But we run after 15 minutes, there's a mandatory maintenance stop. And you can check your tires, you can change your tires, you can even use one of these things on your tires, a brush. You cannot treat your tires with anything. And so the race is such that you have to have your regular digital pit stops and stuff, except at that midpoint, at the 15-minute point, because it's timed to be about midways, because at the speeds our cars are doing, it takes about 34 minutes to run the race. And but you can't make a pit stop at that 15-minute maintenance stop. So part of the strategy is, when do I do my stop? Do I do it before then, after then, the over, the under, all that? But anyway, these are the cars that I've been working with. There's the poly car right there in my Mac Tools livery. Am I getting it? Can you see it? And then there's the, say again?
We can see it.
Okay, and then there's the digital car in the DHL livery that I put on it. And so depending on which chip she pulls out is, you know, it'll be this car with or without a magnet. This was the car that got second place, and I got about fifth place, sixth place with that car. So this is our mini-indy. We hold it every year. Last year we ran, I think I showed these before, or 2 years ago, this was the cars we ran. And then last year we ran the Scalextric Formula One cars. We're using a controller, a lap counter and speed controller. And let me see if I have the name. I think it's called an iLap. It's an RC race car controller. And it gives you all kinds of information on the screen as you're racing. But you have to put on the body of the car up inside it's a chip, and it reads that chip radio wise as it goes under there. And each one has a specific number and a message, so it knows where your car is around. So anyway, that's what we're doing. The 3 cars and the mini-indy next weekend.
So maybe I misunderstood, but on the digital track, when you're doing the mini-indy with the digital cars,
right?
Are there non-magnet and magnet cars on the
track? No, I'm sorry. What happens is, so we qualified these cars and these cars, and depending on which chip she pulls out, whether it's magnet or non-magnet, we'll pull a magnet out of this car or we'll use it magnetic, depending on which form we use. So it'll be this car, but it will be with a magnet or without a magnet. So you have to be prepared kind of for both, and then go through tech after that.
So you qualified with nice cars and then actually raced with the Carrera cars.
Right. Though one of the things we found out, it was kind of interesting, on this track we're running on, the Carrera cars, non-magnetic, are real fast. And when they hit the lane changes, they tend to be like RC airplanes. I've heard a lot of people say, take off and fly. So we've had a lot of flying Carrera digital cars. But these have turned out to be very fast slot cars. We were very surprised when we got them. Mostly these are Red Bull and Ferrari cars that have been repainted. There are some later versions of the, who's the guy that's won all the championships recently?
Lewis Hamilton.
Thank you. The Lewis Hamilton, both the McLaren and the Petronas versions of his cars are available as well. But that's kind of the group of cars that we have. Yeah, there you go, just like that, right.
Did they all get silicone tires or something, or?
We all use what's it? Something gel.
Okay,
gel claws.
Say again.
Gel claws.
Gel claws.
Yes, gel claws. We use gel claws.
Yeah.
And but again, like I said, at that halfway mark, you can change your tires. You can clean your tires. You can't doctor them in any way. And you can tighten and screw down things that are getting loose, or I guess you could even glue wings back on. I don't know, but you can't take on fuel at that point. You either can do it beforehand or after. So the over under is going to be a kind of interesting strategy for us to figure out.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Those the Carrera cars where the guide is way behind the front wheels?
I'm sorry. What did he say?
Are those the Carrera cars where the guide is like an inch behind the front wheels?
Not an inch, but they're
yeah.
Yep, those the ones.
Those go really fast on a tight track.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
And what happens is with the digital switchovers, you have to be very cognizant of when you're switching lanes. We have one switch in the middle of the turn. We have another switch down the back straightaway, and then a smaller one-lane switch on the front straightaway. So the two switchovers, the big switchover, you have to be very cognizant of your speed when you're going through that. Otherwise, like I said, you'll launch. Now, it doesn't seem to be as much so with the magnetic version of the car, but Who knows?
Those little transponders are tiny.
Yeah, yeah, they are. They're like the size of a postage stamp, kind of.
Yeah. Smaller than the Carrera chips, even.
Yes, yes, they are.
I've just been looking at the website. They look pretty interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Back in the day when I was riding radio control cars, the transponder was like a matchbox size.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, they've got them down. They've got it down to a workable size now. And
yeah,
we'll see.
Cool.
I'll report back. I'll report back next week and tell you if I came in closer to second or first.
So looking at that website, do the transponders look like they have chips, or are they RFID, like what you find on a
RFID?
Yeah, okay, that's what I figured. 'Cause that's basically
they're RFID.
Yeah.
Because then you need a decoder and you need a wire loop over the track.
Yeah, you got
under the track.
There's a bridge just before you enter what would be the brickyard, the yard of bricks. There's a bridge that goes over that, and that's your lap car there.
Yeah.
Well, the good news too is that with an RFID chip, no one can shoplift them.
Beep, 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 beep. All right. Thanks for sharing, John. And that is our segue into Club Corner. If you have any past, future, present.
Sorry to interrupt, but I think John Weber brought up the car that he was looking for as his background.
Is that what you did? Let me spotlight you there.
Yes, I did.
That's one way of doing it.
And that's kind of the front view. That's kind of the front view. It's a fairly crude little Eldon-like body.
Ferrari 196 SP, by the way.
Yeah, it's a 246 SP.
Yeah, it was the Le Mans winner from '62, right?
I think 61, wasn't it?
61 or 62.
They did real well at Targa too. The Targa Florio too.
Targa Florio 62.
I've been kind of reading up on it since I found the model, and there's no external difference between the 196 and the 206 or whatever they called it, and the 246 and the 248 8-cylinder, 6-cylinder cars. There's no external difference between them. The only way you can tell anything is by opening the bonnet and see what size the engine is. But okay, this is another look at it. Obviously, it needs a little work.
Those wheels look like Strombecker wheels, John.
I think they are. This was a kit just for a static model that could be made. It was designed to use Strombecker and probably Eldon, I'm not sure what else, chassis to go under it, and so you could make it into a slot car if you wanted to too. They made a Jaguar of some sort and the Lotus. The same company did. It was apparently fairly short-lived offering.
There was a guy up in Oregon who used to take those bodies and make a resin or a glass fiber copy of them. He died some years back. His name was Douglas Haynes from a company called Resilient Resins, and he used that one for a couple of bodies that came out pretty good. I can share the screen and show you. There we go.
Yeah, that's that 152. That's the livery of the car. I think it's Rodriguez drove that car, and one
Rodriguez
Targa.
at the Targa Florio.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah, cool.
This is while I was building it.
Neat.
The chassis underneath.
Yeah, that's really nice.
And I had to build a whole interior for it because that wasn't available. So I scratch built the interior complete with this 5-speed shift gate on the side here.
Nice.
It would have been easier with the 4-speed.
Yeah, it would have been easier with an automatic, but
cool.
That's pretty amazing that you could do that, Dennis.
No, not really. Why?
Yeah. Anyway, that's how it looks now. sometime in the future, maybe I'll show it again. It'll look worse or better. I'm not sure which. So we'll find out.
That's really nice.
I'm done.
Good job.
All right, good stuff, Mr. Weber. Thanks for sharing. And Jim is ready for Club Corner. Take it away, Jim.
No, I was just responding to the transponder thing.
Oh yeah.
So here's that's a different brand than what he was using, but it's a similar system. And I shoved the crown gear in there so you could kind of get an idea how big these things are.
Yeah.
So this is one of the lap counter systems that I guess you could adapt to a slot car.
That is small.
Does that require?
Which one is that, Jim?
The name is escaping me right offhand. It's not the iLap though. It's the other one. There's 2 or 3 different ones.
Right.
Yeah.
The one we used to use in radio control was AMBs, not an AMB.
Yeah, AMBs are a lot better and they're bigger and they're more expensive, but they're radio. These are not radio. So they have a few limitations, but they work good for these cheap RC cars.
Good enough for horseshoes. All right. Did you have any Club Corner to share, Jim?
No, not this week.
All righty. Anybody else got any Club Corner they want to share?
No.
All right. I guess the floor is open. Let's see. Somebody asked. Oh, hold on. Let me see. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Hey, our Club Corner opens and I get my first time at hosting an event. So if anybody has any tips or anything, I don't know. Let me see here.
Lots of
Beer.
table space for slot boxes.
Yeah, I'm gonna move the stuff over
Nice.
here out of the way, but I got the track up and ready and everything's working.
Nice
so
track.
I'm gonna,
Yeah, that's grand.
it's
really nice.
getting there. I gotta start working on like Boone's slot car, doing that terrain stuff he does.
Jeremy, what is your tracking system?
Looks like
I built mine with an Arduino and then use it with Race Coordinator right here. There's just infrared LED lights that go through there.
I think those 2 racers there are going to give you a lot of hassle this weekend.
Yeah, the little one for sure. She just holds the trigger down. So that's anyway. That's what we'll be racing, and then I have don't know, not that one. Wrong way. Never mind.
That's Electric Sport Track, right?
Yeah, it's Electric Sport. So then somebody gave me a TV, so I mounted that and then ran the video system through there. So
Really
anyway,
nice.
it's working. We're good. And then I got those on sale from somebody. I won't say who, but one of the other shop owners sold me a bunch of those. So I was like, cool.
That's a good looking outfit.
It's very nice. Very nice.
Nice looking setup.
Thanks,
That
man.
is a really nice layout. You didn't try to squeeze every little bit of track you could get in. It's a good layout.
Yeah, I just wanted to have some weird corners because everybody else in the club, when they have tracks, they make it as easy as possible. So I wanted to have some R3s that turn into R2, just weird. Because if the track's too easy, there's no challenge. You just race the best cars and everybody knows who's going to win every week. So
Well, it also looks like you have a bit of elevation there too, Jeremy.
yeah, I got that over the. Oh, I had to get over for the Scalextric semi trucks. So
Yeah.
you don't realize how tall those are until they hit the
okay.
bridge, and then you're like, okay. So now it's like 4.5 inches tall to get that bridge to work, but I kept it at 10 degree pitch, so it's not extreme.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway.
lots of table space for pit boxes, lots
Yeah.
of chairs, snacks and drinks.
Yeah, when you guys host your events, do you guys like provide lunch and stuff like hot dogs, chips?
I mean,
drinks? What do you guys do?
We don't normally do a full meal. Sometimes we do, like if
Yeah.
if the event is a weekend event and it's scheduled during a mealtime, like during lunch.
Yeah.
Sometimes they'll put out a spread, but for the most part, it's not during a mealtime, so it's just snacks and drinks.
We'll order pizza in sometimes, have the guy deliver, fresh pizza, and you have drinks and pizza.
Costco pizza.
Costco pizza, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
All right.
Or you
Depends on how many people,
You could serve beanie weenie and everybody would leave on time.
Chex Mix.
We definitely would leave.
Do you use the speech automation? I mean, as part of the race coordinator.
For the names? No, I haven't. I was waiting for you to send me some information about that. I didn't. I think you emailed me. Just email me that what you did.
I got the batch files using a public domain text-to-speech engine, Balboa, and I can send it over to you. But you still have to do all the creation right now in Race Coordinator to create the drivers. And I was trying to get some automation on that and have a whole thing turnkey. We could just go to a spreadsheet, put a name in there, and just does everything for you. But
Yeah. Cool.
But, okay.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah, looking forward to that. All right. Anybody else got anything they want to bring up? I had a topic that I was going to throw out there. Somebody sent me a message saying they're really interested in scratch building chassis. Has Chris or Dennis ever made a video or can suggest any for piano wire chassis? As all I can find is brass tube or box section information. You got any good resources for piano wire chassis building?
Yeah, if you go to, I think it is irraslotracing.com. That is the website of the International Retro Racing Association. Now, granted, that's 1/24th scale chassis, but there's a section on that website that is called how-tos. And in the how-to section, there are a number of, not videos, but documented builds, step-by-step with photographs. I did one, a couple of others have been done. There are ones there about tools and things like that. So there's actually quite a lot of stuff there.
What's
the
the
other
idea?
place, of course, is on Home Racing World in the Marty Stanley scratch building section of Home Racing World. There's a lot of stuff there. People just have to go look for it.
What's the idea behind a piano wire chassis?
Well, you use the piano wire for the main rails of the chassis rather than brass tubing because it's stronger. Right, brass tubing will bend eventually. I mean, if you drop the car, you could bend it. Right. You use brass tubing for hinges. You don't use it for structural mainframe, as far as I'm concerned. You know, there's other things you can use. I've used brass rod, but generally, I've always tried to consider that the chassis is where is what you use to get the weight of the car down. Oh, I see Courtney's put up a thing for Tony P stuff as well. Okay. There used to be a video from Mike Stubbe out there as well, but that was on a CD and it was massive. It was hours and hours and hours long. He took you right through every step of it, but that takes a lot of time to get through.
Yeah, these Tony P videos are okay. There's somebody built a 32nd scale car and put it on slot blog from out your way, Dennis. Was that you? Did a build tutorial on that? I'll look for it.
When?
It was on slot blog. It was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
Oh, I've done some and put them out there. There's a whole bunch of mine on slot blog somewhere.
Yeah, okay, maybe it was yours.
A bunch of mine on Slot Forum in the UK Slot Forum. There's a bunch of them on Home Racing World. So people can find those. Yeah, there's a lot of those out there.
When you build your own chassis, do you have to have a jig to start? I mean, that's basically
no. You don't have to have a jig to start. I mean, the first couple of chassis that I built when I started building again, I took a piece of MDF and I drilled holes in it to make it about what I needed for chassis, and I started that way. And then later on, somebody's got a thing on. Later on, I started building with a proper building jig.
All right.
I think Dennis will agree with me, but one of the biggest tricks to building slot cars is learning how to solder well.
Correct.
If you can't solder, you're never going to put one together properly.
Correct. I'm
looking at the pictures of them over here, and I see what you're talking about in terms of the minimalistic of it and how it would reduce the weight.
Yeah, I mean, if I could share a screen again, some of these photos are ones that were part of the thing that I wrote. It just shows pieces, how they were cut, and then that was one of my original building jigs. That's a piece of some kind of ceramic. I don't remember. I got that one from the UK. It's actually a 1/32 scale building jig, but I modified it for what I was doing. And these are the photos from the article that's on IRA Slot Racing of the chassis that I built. And it just takes you through step by step how to get every piece in place. But Jeremy, you don't need a jig. You could use a piece of graph paper on something flat, or like a lot of the guys do on the home racing world. They buy these. It's a ceramic plate. It's like a honeycomb plate, and then you just pop little pins in the holes of the honeycomb to hold it up. But that was the chassis that I was building for that particular article. That's some years back. Well, geez, 057. Yeah, that's a long time ago.
If I can share, and they don't have to be that complex either. I mean, no. I did this for one of my 356s, and it's really quite simple. It just, a couple of pans on the side. And there's the front axle. That's where the rear axle will go. This is what attaches to the body, and there's some movement here from the two pieces of spring steel. There's the guide, and that's it. So it doesn't have to be that. And again, this is the sort of plate that Dennis was talking about. It's actually a ceramic filter, and you use pins to line everything up, and then, or you could just use something flat like a piece of marble that can take some heat. So yeah, it doesn't take a lot of equipment to do a half decent chassis, and it goes great.
I think the hardest part for me, I haven't finished my chassis yet, but the hardest part for me was trying to figure out how Dennis and everybody makes the part for anchoring the body, how you make that movement. It's separate from the the chassis where the motor sits. So that's the part I've been trying to figure out, how to make it float.
Dennis is muted.
Dennis, you're not on. Your microphone's not on.
Oh, I was muted. Okay. I was just trying to share another one just to show you. This is when I first started building. That one was on a piece of MDF. And what the hell's, where's my, oh, damn it. Something went wrong. Let me try again.
When you're bending brackets of brass like that, are you just bending it in a vise, or do you have to heat it up at all or anything?
Again, it depends on what you're bending. I very seldom bend the brass at all.
Okay.
I bend the piano wire, and that I use a couple of different pairs of pliers, but particularly those dental pliers that have two prongs on one side and one prong on the other.
Yeah.
I'll show you. Hang on.
In the meanwhile, like as far as movement, Neil, again, it doesn't have to be really complex. Here, let me
all my
show
stuff
you.
is just out of reach of my hands-free device. So those are the pliers that I use for most of my 90-degree bends. You put the wire through there and just squeeze it, and it'll bend it. And the nice part about that is that when it bends that, is that each side of the bend is equally straight, because it's bending both of them at once. If you hold everything in a single pair of pliers and then bend it, the other side is never quite straight. There's always a slight curve in it because you can't get enough leverage close to it. So I use those a lot.
Did you say those are dental pliers?
Yeah. Well, if you go into Micromark,
you can buy like a collection of four.
They have a selection of four
right.
sets. This is the most useful one of them, but you will use the others.
So I was just going to show Neil, you don't even have to bend if you don't want to. I mean, I got some movement here just by sort of soldering the pans. and then you can solder the this piece of steel if you want. I did, and you get some movement here, just enough to isolate the body from the chassis. And again, you know, experiment, have some fun, but you can't really do anything too wrong.
Well, I'm looking at that, and that piece of steel that you have going across to those side pans.
Yeah.
It's soldered in 3 places, so the whole thing is really soldered to the chassis.
Well, yes and no, but there's actually a wee bit of movement here between this pan and that pan, and here between this pan and that pan.
All you ever want is a little bit of rattle.
Yeah, a little bit. You don't need much. Like it's also with, you know, with Dennis and Chris has said, you know, too much is really too much. You don't really need a lot to isolate it.
So what you're saying is the long pieces on either side are not attached.
Oh, you mean these long pieces of brass here?
Right.
Yeah.
That's where you're getting the movement?
Yep.
But it's the movement allowed by the flex of the piano wire.
Correct.
Which is
and the reason that and to Dennis's point, the reason you use piano wire is that it springs, it goes back to its original form. Unlike brass is too soft to do that.
Okay, so even though it's soldered in 3 places, right, going across.
Yep.
Because the 2 brass plates aren't physically soldered to the main brass plate, that's where that little bit of movement comes from the spring steel.
Correct.
Oh, I got you.
So it's held together. It's not locked together.
Right. So I don't, here, let me just zoom in here a wee bit. I mean, it's nothing compared to what Dennis and Chris do, but you can kind of see here that you see there's that gap here.
Yes, it's gapped. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you've got some movement. And you know that the movement's basically in a straight line for the most part.
Now, would you get more movement if that were piano wire and not steel bar?
I don't know.
I don't know what you mean by steel bar.
Yeah.
Well, this.
I think the main reason for using piano wire is that it's basically spring steel. It's not. Right. It's not going to bend and then keep
music wire. Yeah. What John has done here was, you know, on that photo, that centerpiece is just brass, goes all the way under the motor, folds up at the back to hold the rear tube.
Right.
And then he's got this at the front, and then these pieces of crossways are loose, but yeah.
So when I see Dennis's, you know, the pictures that you sent me, and you have that piece of spring steel that's up like a V pattern, and then you have a steel rod that goes through that to hold the side pans.
Yeah, and then so I had those little like little stirrups.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, those little stirrups. There's clearance between those and the piece across the body, so that there's rattle there. I know.
Right.
I think I know what you're talking about. I'm just.
Okay, and why do you want to be able to have the rattle? Why do you want to have it to move?
Well, why do you loosen the screws on a plastic car that hold the body to the?
I don't. I tighten them.
It's to basically isolate the vibration of the body from the chassis.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Exactly the same.
Loosening those screws there, buddy.
When you loosen the screws, you also allow the chassis to take its natural form, and you don't tighten the screws to build in any tweak or twist. You allow it to relax, and it becomes the shape it came out of the mold, and hopefully that's already flat. You also allow the chassis to bend a little bit more as you go around the corner, which can aid the traction.
Yeah,
it can help with the grip.
And as we all know, because we're here, it's always good to have a screw loose.
What'd you say, Dennis?
I say bend is not a good word to use. Flex is a better word to use.
Got it. Okay.
Bend implies that it's not going to come back, right? And that's what happens with brass. Whereas with the piano wire, it doesn't do that. It comes back Here's a good one. Let me show you this.
It has a
one.
memory, that's why.
So while you're talking about that, let me get this. If I have an isolated motor mount, say like a slotted or a NSR, one of those, is it best to keep it a little loose in terms of the rest of the chassis?
Yes.
Okay.
Generally.
All right. So,
some cars like it, some cars don't.
Okay.
And generally speaking, you loosen the pod to gain traction at the rear and tighten it up to lose traction if you're lifting the front end out.
Correct.
That's a very general rule.
Got it.
Okay, Neil. So this particular car had a vacuum form body on it, and the body is held on by these four little pins that go through the body into tubes that are on the side pans. You'll see them in a moment, right? But the side pans are hinged on this particular car. You have these rails that go all the way forward, and the rails you can see better from underneath. They carry they start at the back and the axle tube, and then they run forward all the way to the front, right? And that carries the guide and it carries the front wheels. And then these little pieces of square tubing, either side of the motor and either side of the nose, have bits of wire inside them that are then soldered onto the side pans, and so they can hinge and they flap up and down just a little bit, right? And the movement there is controlled by these bent pieces that go out towards the outside with the little stirrups over the top of them.
Right, and the only place that it's soldered, that piece going across, is right in front of the motor. You soldered
right in front of the motor, and onto the main rails. So this car uses the flexing of those main rails that run forward and backward to give some traction, and then the body is mounted on the side pans and it can rattle up and down. It doesn't move more than about 10 or 15 thousandths of an inch, right? And so that's what that does. Now, on some others, that was just another one the same. Let me see if I can find one that, this one, a little bit different. Because here, what I did was, I've got the same rails going forward and backward, but then I've got these big pieces of wire going right across the frame that are holding the outside pans and these two little pans in the middle with those little stirrups over them.
Yeah,
and that then gives a rattle, just a rattle and a shake rather than a hinge. And that's good when you use this kind of mounting where you've drilled holes through the side pans and you're screwing them into the body.
Right.
So this one,
so essentially you're making a pod.
Well, it's not really it's not so much a pod, although here.
Well, it's a center section that holds the motor.
Right. The body is mounted to the side pans, and they happen to carry these two center pans as well. And then there's a separate section of the car, which is the front wheels, the guide, the motor, the rear wheels, and the two main rails. This one has an extra complexity in that the guide is mounted on these pieces of wire down the middle of the car, so it can flex a little bit side to side, about a 1/16 of an inch either way. This one does a similar thing. That's not it. I didn't have a coffee.
That's a lot of piano wire.
Oh, that's a lot of piano wire, yeah. There were times when I've done them like that. And this is the other thing about piano wire rails, right? Is I can build a chassis like this that has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rails of small diameter wire each side, or I can build another one that has, I thought there was one there, other ones that have one rail of thicker wire on each side, and you get a different amount of flex. There you can see how the bodies are mounted with the screws on the side there.
Yep.
And then underneath,
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah, there's a piece of foam glued onto the side of the body with a brass plate glued to it with a little nut soldered onto that, and then these screw in from there.
Nice. I have a better understanding now. So
okay,
when I go to try to figure out to do mine, then I can. Yes, I have a very good understanding now.
Good.
Good stuff. Well, we've only got a couple of minutes left on the recording. Does anybody else have any last minute questions for Dennis on this topic or anything else they want to circle back?
Got another little quick show and tell that I forgot about. The Scalextric Corvette C8s arrived, and so I have here, I just brought them out to see. The yellow one is the Carrera, the gray one is the Scalextric. They are very, very similar in size, very similar in shape. Each one has its pluses and its minuses. Some of the detail on the Scalextric car, like these little vents up front, are really good, whereas Carrera is just painted, but the Carrera one does have a wiper and a little bit more interior detail. The Carrera has the fuel filler caps. The Scalextric does not.
Is the Carrera one heavier?
The Carrera one is 30 grams heavier.
Wow.
Yeah, 118 to 88.
Carrera needs
the
new
Carrera
chassis.
one is marginally wider too. Is that correct, Dennis, or is that just my screen?
Say again?
It looks like the Carrera one is a little bit girthier, a little bit wider. Is that true?
Not really.
I think
the
it's
wheel.
the colors. I think it's the colors.
Yeah, colors can do that.
It's actually not wider. In fact, I think that the Scalextric one is across the wheels. Oh, they're identical across the wheels.
But 30 grams.
30 grams. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
You can feel it. It's a heavy sucker. It actually runs really nice though, but obviously the Scalextric feels a lot livelier. Just the weird thing about it is this gray. I don't know. I haven't seen the full-size cars, whether they were gray or whether they were silver. But it looks like it's
gray.
primered, you know.
They were a matte gray.
Oh, okay.
These didn't come in any other liveries, because that is not a very good livery, that gray and yellow.
Well, these are the scale liveries, right? These are the Daytona cars, but
Yeah, the real cars were those liveries.
yeah.
Brutal.
The team ran a gray one and the yellow.
Yeah, a 3 and a 4. And that's what these
And
are.
Ferrari had a gray car that year too. That was kind of confusing when you saw them.
Can
They
imagine.
had yellow as well.
Anyway, I just thought I'd show you. You know, I'm a bit of a Corvette nut, so.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Well, good stuff and great way to end the recording. I'm going to hit the stop button and we can wave bye. Bye.